As you board, please move across your car to make room for everyone, and kindly offer available seating to those needing special assistance. If you're standing, please hold on to the handrails and stay clear of the doors. They will be closing in a moment. Thank you.
Hey, howdy, hey, and welcome to another episode of Disney Assembled. I'm Troy.
And I'm Mimi.
And we are your happy little father-daughter podcast, here to create joy and share our love for all things Disney.
Disney Assembled is sponsored by our patrons over on Patreon, Brenda, Danny, Connie, and Andrew.
Yes, thank you guys very much. We really appreciate you supporting the show. If you would like to join them and become part of our Patreon group or Patreon supporter family, whatever we want to call it, our assemblers. If you want to be one of the assemblers, head on over to our website, DisneyAssembled.com, and click on the Become a Patron button there, or go to patreon.com/DisneyAssembled. Membership starts as little as $2 a month, and you get access to all the exclusive patron-only content there. If you're looking for other Disney magic to bring into your day, you should try checking out Magic and the Mouse Radio. Magic and the Mouse Radio is the best online internet radio station for all your Disney music, 24/7, 365, magicandthemouseradio.com. You can hear our show also on Magic and the Mouse Radio every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 9 a.m. Eastern.
In addition to the Magic the Mouse Radio family, I am so proud to be part of the Magic the Mouse News family. MagicTheMouseNews.com has articles for anything and everything Disney related that you might want to read. So make sure to go check it out, MagicTheMouseNews.com.
Yes, do that. All right. What's going on in our world? We're recording this episode a little earlier than usual. You're going to be out this weekend. Today is, what day is today? November
3rd.
Today's the 3rd of November.
It's
This
Friday.
episode comes out on the 5th.
Yeah.
So we're recording a little bit earlier than usual. You have a busy weekend. You're not going to be around. So we wanted to get our recording in. And you're going to be busy next weekend too. So we got to get some episodes. We got to get some episodes recorded next week also. But is there anything you want to share with anybody? Anything going on in the world that you want to talk about before we get into this week's episode?
Nope. I'm just really tired. So this episode might be kind of short.
Yeah, it's going to be a good episode.
It'll be a great episode. I'm very tired today.
Because this episode has been inspired by Loki season 2, which we have been watching every week. Like, we have not missed an episode. We've been catching it pretty much on Thursday when it comes out every night. We are currently 5 of the 6 episodes are done. Generally speaking, what are your thoughts without spoiling anything for everyone?
I'm really liking it. I'm liking it a lot more than the first season. I'm very intrigued and excited to see how it's going to wrap up its storyline and how it's going to further the MCU.
Yeah, I am really enjoying season 2 of Loki. If you're not watching it and you're listening to this show, you should check out season 2 of Loki. I do think, in my opinion, I think it's better than season 1, even though I really liked season 1. But I think this season has really been fantastic. I love the story, and one thing I appreciate about Loki is, I mean, there's action, but it's not like superior action all the time. And so a lot of the story and a lot of what I love about the show is how the characters just interact with each other and have their conversations, and how the story moves along through sort of the character development. And there is action. I mean, it's a superhero, comic book Marvel series,
right?
But it's not like over the top action.
Right.
And
something we talk about a lot on this show is the importance to us about, trying again. Something that we've learned about ourselves through doing the show is that the shows and movies that we find entertaining and the franchises that we find that are very good come from character-driven stories versus plot/action-driven stories.
Right.
And Loki is one of those series of many in the MCU. that does a very good job of developing its characters and the dynamics between the characters and the relationships that the characters have with their outside world.
Yeah.
And it's definitely something that I have incorporated into my own writing. And it's something that I really admire when I'm looking at a franchise to determine whether the quality of the work is at what I want or expect it to be.
Right.
And I think Loki is hitting that mark.
Yep.
Considering the MCU sort of flop films that we've had in the last little bit.
You know, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm just too positive. I don't want to be so negative on the stuff. I mean, I enjoyed the first part of the Marvel stuff more than the more recent stuff, but I think when it's all said and done, we're going to look back and we're going to say we were a little too critical. Right. I don't know. I think some of the quality has been raw off with the CGI, especially on Ant-Man Quantumania. I thought the CGI there was pretty bad. But
the ones that have been good have been character-driven stories.
Well,
Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man, Ant-Man, versus ones like the Marvels or Doctor Strange, which are very plot and action-driven films, or there isn't enough character development to make it a character-based story.
Right.
Like with the Marvels, there's too much going on there.
Exactly. Right. So, hey, it's a good segue into this week's main topic of the week.
Wait, the Marvels? I meant not the Marvels.
Eternals?
Them, yes.
Yeah,
see, I can't even get their name right. That's how minuscule they are.
Well, we are going to talk about Marvel on Disney Plus in this episode. So if you're listening to this episode, of course you are. You wouldn't be hearing me say that. We're going to talk about just going to have a general conversation about the 12 series that are part of the MCU that have come out on Disney Plus. There have been 12 now, including Loki season 2. I know you said you didn't see it yet, but a trailer for Echo came out today. I saw the trailer. It looks really good.
Okay.
I mean, it looks really good. And to the point where, and this does concern me, I'll save my concerns for our conversation.
Okay.
Because I don't want to have the conversation before we have the conversation.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Because before we have the conversation, we have to have the Disney dad joke of the week, and then we can have the conversation, right? Because if I jump into the conversation now, our listeners are going to get completely thrown off because they're like, wait a minute, there's a formula to this show, and you're not following it, and we're confused. So what's the deal?
Let's jump into the joke.
We should also mention before we do the joke, for the people who are listening to this episode, here's the question: did you enjoy the secret bonus episode that came out in the middle of this week for Halloween? So we put that Halloween episode out. It was a secret. We didn't announce we were going to do it. It was a bonus episode this week. It doesn't count as sort of the Disney assembled canon. It'll be not part of our canon.
Does it not get an episode number?
I did not give it an episode number. No, I did not give it an episode number because I didn't want to get our count mixed up because I wanted our 200th episode when our 200th episode is supposed to be. But we did the bonus episode this week for Halloween. So if you didn't listen to that, do that. If you didn't listen to last week's show, we wrapped up our spooky, scary Sundays.
Spooky, scary Sundays.
Right. We did our top 5 Star Wars villains. But yeah, this week for Halloween, we re-released, a story that our friend Lynn from the Sweep Spot told us way back in episode 85. Can you believe it was that long
85?
ago? 85.
No way. What? That was 100 episodes ago.
Over 100 episodes ago.
That's crazy.
And Lynn told a really creepy story about being a custodial cast member at Disneyland involving some ghosts and apparitions and stuff. So if you didn't listen to the episode, you should do it. I think it may be a tradition for us now. Kind of like on TV, they used to do the holiday specials that come out on TV every year. I think every year for Halloween, we should release the story from Lynn about his creepiness in Disneyland, right?
I don't know.
All right.
I haven't thought that far ahead.
All right, on with our show. Right. We need to do our dad joke. And then we have to have a conversation about the Disney Plus MCU stuff, right?
Yes.
All right. Are you ready for this week's Disney dad joke of the week?
I am.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time once again for this week's Disney dad joke of the week.
Oh, boy.
Mimi. And when you walk in on Main Street, you go to the right next to Tony's Town Square. They have, I can't remember the name, but it's a place where they get the hats and the Mickey ears and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So did you know what one set of Mickey ears said to another set of Mickey ears?
No.
Stay right here. I'm going to go on ahead.
Okay.
Get it?
Yes.
Stay right here.
That is so silly.
I'm going to go on ahead.
I love that.
That is this week's Disney Dad Joke of the Week. Ladies and gentlemen, If you have a dad joke of the Disney variety that you believe is show appropriate, please feel free to share it with us. Send us an email, disneyassembled@gmail.com, or you can send it to us as a direct message on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok, all at Disney Assembled. I'm still calling it Twitter. Some people still call it Twitter. I can't say the X. X just sounds dumb.
It does sound dumb.
So the app formerly known as Twitter.
Because are you still putting out tweets or are they X's? I'm confused.
I don't know. X marks the spot where social media went to die. All right.
Yeah. It's time to jump into this episode.
Let's jump into this episode. I'm going to pull up a graphic on my brand new iPhone 15 Pro Plus. Is that what it is? Or Pro Max?
I think it's the Pro Max.
Pro Max, which ought to be great for us if and when we go back to the parks, because, you know, I
don't know what you're talking about. What's the park?
If we go to the parks again, especially if we end up there.
What the parks?
The Disney parks. You know, if we end up there maybe on New Year's Eve, maybe at Epcot, you know, it'll be good to have a nice high quality camera.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard of any of these things.
Yeah, I'm making no sense. All right. To recap, for people who haven't been paying attention, there have been 12. Is it 12?
Yeah.
11.
They've got to be more than
that. Is
that.
11 or 12?
No way.
11. Is it 11 or is it 12? I think it's 11.
11.
There are 11.
There's got to be more than that,
I think there's 11. So let's name them, because you count while I name. All right. WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki Season 1, What If, because they had the animated series, right? Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, Secret Invasion, Loki Season 2, and Werewolf by Night. Which was kind of one. Not really a series, it's kind of one. But we'll include Werewolf by Night in there. Okay?
That's 11.
That's
I feel
11.
Like there were way more than that.
No, I think that's it. Did I miss one?
No, I just feel like there were way more than that.
I think that's it. I think there's 11. So there's 11 there.
These started the same fall that I started high school. So it's like very weird to
kind of unbelievable
that there's only been 11 of them.
So these series have... I don't know how much these series were supposed to advance the overall
are they canon?
Story.
Are they not canon? Nobody really knows. So these series were created.
I mean, some of them are one-offs.
Some of them are very much one-offs. Some of them are very much a part of the canon. The question is, what is what? And nobody knows. But I think we're just going to go one by one, talk about them, just talk about what we think about them. And
why don't we do this? Let's start with the canon. Let's start with the main MCU canon.
Okay.
We're going to do that. We're going to talk about them one by one. But some of them are obviously part of the current MCU canon. And some of them, we haven't seen any real connection to the feature-length movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, all right, you get started. You wanted to go one by one, so why don't you...
I think we can talk about that when we talk about each series.
We can do that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll just start at the beginning. We'll start with WandaVision.
Right.
I think WandaVision is one of the most creative, most interesting storylines, plot lines, character development that I have ever seen come from a series of television. I think there is nothing like it. I think it very much has, to me at least, it has a very nostalgic feeling attached to it. I remember, I've never ever gotten up early for any sort of premiere except for the series finale of the show. I wanted to be the first person in the whole school to have watched the WandaVision series finale. I was all into this show. And if you've been around for a while, you know my love of WandaVision. WandaVision is a part of the MCU canon, considering we kind of pick up Wanda more or less where we left her at the end of WandaVision in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, more or less, because they never really make that connection, which is part of why that movie is so bad, but whatever. This series also gave us Monica Rambeau, who is a Marvel. What do you think?
So, and I think I was using the wrong term. All of these shows are part of the canon. I think it's how closely are they related to the movie story, like the storyline that we see in the feature films. And WandaVision obviously is a big, clear connection, right? Because the Wanda that comes out of WandaVision is the Wanda that we see in Multiverse of Madness. Again, like you said, Monica Rambeau is going to be in the Marvels, which is coming out this month.
Right. And the Wanda that starts the series that we learn about in like the 5th episode is the Wanda from the end of Endgame.
Right. So
who steals Vision's body.
And listen, I would say WandaVision is one of the top 3. If you had to look at all 11 of these, I would say it's in the top 3. Wouldn't you? I mean, I would rank it in the top 3.
As much as I love it, like taking that out, I think it's objectively one of the best shows that they've produced so far. Yeah,
I think so too. That's what I'm saying. I think it's one of the top 3 of the 11 series, because we're counting Loki twice, right? Season 1 and season 2.
Right. Because they're very different.
I would say it's probably in the top 3.
I think this show, I don't know how else to explain it, except there's literally nothing else like it. I've never seen anything else like it. It's the first of its kind. Gravity Falls didn't even stretch this thin. Five Nights at Freddy's hasn't stretched this thin. This show, I think changed how Marvel is permanently going to tell their stories, because it's not a movie and you couldn't watch it all at once, but it very much continued the storyline after Endgame.
Well, everything
and threw us into quote unquote the next idea, right? That being said, we don't really see Wanda's villain arc. She's just picked up as a villain in Doctor Strange. That's a completely different conversation.
Right.
But yeah.
But everything up to Moon Knight has a clear connection to the film storyline. Falcon and Winter Soldier, obviously, because Bucky and Sam and the whole thing with Captain America. Loki season 1 had an obvious connection.
It's Loki from the first Avengers, so it's duh, right?
Well, they even had scenes from the first Avengers in Loki season 1, right? What If, even though it was animated, again, it had connections because you see some of those characters in Multiverse of Madness, like Captain Carter and whatever. So, I mean, there was somewhat of a connection there. Not a great connection, but there was a connection there.
To me, What If is sort of this series of offhand short stories that create these characters in the canon to set up cameos in Multiverse of Madness, but it doesn't necessarily continue any of the world building, doesn't necessarily add to the canon in the way that WandaVision or Falcon Winter Soldier do.
What If to me is a story of alternate timelines of the Avengers, of the characters, right? You could almost make the case that What If is an animated version of what some of these other timelines were doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Hawkeye obviously had a clear connection to the MCU canon. And of course, there's a connection there with Echo, right? Because Echo appeared in Hawkeye, right? So we start to see a connection there.
Echo was in Secret Invasion.
No, Echo was the woman that ended up dealing with Kingpin at the end of Hawkeye.
I thought Kingpin was Secret Invasion. I clearly don't know anything about Secret Invasion.
No.
Oh, also...
Because you didn't watch Secret Invasion.
Yeah, because it was terrible.
So, but to get on track with what we're talking about, I mean, I'm kind of losing track of what we were doing with this. So I'm thinking Moon Knight was the first time we had a series that was completely new and didn't have a clear, direct connection to the film franchises. And there hasn't been a whole lot of anything since Moon Knight to connect Moon Knight back. So Moon Knight as a character in the series is sort of, it's hanging out there waiting for something to be done with it. Now, whether it's a season 2, which we've heard nothing about, or Moon Knight appearing in some other kind of dark Avenger type scenario, I haven't seen any of that. But I would say, to get back to the thing, up to Moon Knight, so the first 6, I would say WandaVision and Loki were strong offerings, which kind of made the next sort of phase of things a little head scratching, wouldn't you say? I mean, to me, it's a little head scratch because I even thought Hawkeye was better than I anticipated it being. I enjoyed Hawkeye a lot, and I actually enjoyed Falcon and Winter Soldier a little bit more than I thought I would.
I think the bar was set extremely high by WandaVision, and which I think is part of genuinely why I don't enjoy Falcon and Winter Soldier as much, because it's just such a drop off in not quality, but design of television show immediately following WandaVision. But I think I think Wanda's storyline is handling very much the space sort of aspect of the multiverse, and Loki is very much looking at the time version of the multiverse. And I think what's confusing to people is that it hasn't really been explained how these two things overlap or how they don't overlap. Because to me, from my perspective, okay, fine, we have all these multiverses and America Chavez can just jump in between multiverses. But are these multiverses branched timelines? Are they completely separate timelines altogether that have their own loom and their own TVA? Like what does that look like, right? And I think that questions that people want answered from Loki season 2 was this: how does space and time correlate? Because Wanda and Strange are doing like one half of the equation, and Loki seemingly by himself is doing the second half of this equation. And it's like, how do they mesh? How do characters like Hawkeye and She-Hulk and the Marvels and Nick Fury bridge them together? I thought Hawkeye was very good, and it was so much funnier than I expected it to be, so much better than I ever anticipated it being. But it doesn't answer. It answers very like tangible questions about the MCU, whereas Wanda and Loki are posing these very like intangible questions.
Well, I'm a little concerned about the Marvels because I want it to be good. I want to watch it. I'd like to go to the theater to see it. I have high hopes for it because we enjoyed Ms. Marvel.
Yeah, she's a cute character.
I was at 50-50 on the Monica Rambeau character. I don't think they did enough to really set her up to be a big time hero yet, but maybe that's what the movie is for. Yeah. My concern of the Marvels is it was set up. It seemed like the setup for the Marvels was supposed to be Secret Invasion. And as I'm looking at these 11 series or 11, well, we added Werewolf by Night. It was a one-off.
Werewolf by Night is definitely a one-off.
I'm looking at these series, and if I had to give either a clear thumbs up or thumbs down, I would give a thumbs up to all of them except Secret Invasion. I mean, even She-Hulk with the sketchy CGI at times and kind of goofiness,
She-Hulk was still so enjoyable.
Right.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the Marvels. I enjoyed Moon Knight. Pretty much everything up to Secret Invasion, I enjoyed watching.
Right. We looked forward to sitting down every week and watching that. I mean, we got up at 5 a.m. to watch Moon Knight. I mean,
well, I got through Secret Invasion. You just stopped watching it, and I got through it. And I was hoping that there would be a payoff at the end, and I just didn't get a payoff at the end. And Loki season 2. So let's think about this. You know, Loki season 2 right now, in my mind, I would say is probably the best of the Marvel series on Disney Plus. Of the 11 that we listed, I would say currently, even before it ends in next week, right? The finale is next week. I would place Loki season 2 as the top series so far. I think it is really, really good.
Why?
I think it's fantastic storytelling. I think it's great science fiction. I think it is advancing a story and is filling in gaps as to why the big bad guy that's coming is coming. And I think it's not relying on a ton of previous knowledge, even though watching season 1 would be very helpful. But it's not relying on big over the top action scenes. Like, it doesn't need it. It's just really good storytelling. The characters are good. It's well written. It's well directed. It's very well acted. The cast is very good in Loki. And so I just think it's very entertaining. I think it's really good stuff and has the potential that if they want to do more seasons of Loki, they're certainly set Loki up for much more if they choose to do it. I've been watching some videos about Loki online, and we're not big comic book readers, but one of the things that Loki goes is from the god of mischief to the god of stories. And I think what they're doing in Loki season 2 is they're setting up to be the god of stories, where he gets to manipulate the stories of people's lives. And I think that's what they're doing. I think that's what we see with the time slipping and his influence over how these people live their lives.
He's also
less about mischief and more about just becoming the creator of things now, right. Which is interesting.
Also like seemingly what's it called? Immune to the timelines that dissipate. I mean, of all the characters that got sent back to their original spot on the timeline, he was not one of them. He was the only one left in the TVA. And I think that's really telling. And also, like, maybe he was time slipping. I guess I don't want to, like, give it away. But in the most recent episode, he didn't get spaghettied. Of every other character in the timeline, he was existing and got spaghettied. And he didn't. And
he was about to be.
And I don't believe that. I don't believe that he was going to be.
He learned how to control his time slipping.
Well, yeah. Let me just tell you all a story. So when I started high school, I made this friend, and I'm not going to drop his name because obviously I don't have his permission for that, and this is a public space. But he was my first ever friend in high school, which I think is something that's really valuable to me. But we bonded over watching WandaVision. We watched it. Obviously, you and I watched it together. But after every single Wednesday, we would text and we would call and we would talk about it and we would theorize. And what does this mean for the MCU? What's going on with Wanda? And then when that Vision episode dropped, like heads exploded and Falcon and Winter Soldier kind of fell off, picked right back up again with Loki, even to a higher extent, arguably. And then we kind of fell off for a while. And I was like, are you liking Hawkeye? And he's like, yeah, it's great. How's Moon Knight? And whatever, like didn't really talk, like didn't really theorize. We weren't given a whole lot of information. But Loki season 2 has thrown us back into this conversation, this dialogue about the MCU, about the characters, about the world building in a way that we haven't had in like over a year. And legitimately, like I have 8 texts sitting in my phone right now from him to talk about it and figure out what's going on. And all of this is to say, Loki season 2, regardless of what it means for the greater range of the MCU, is doing something that I think Marvel fans have been wanting and craving for a really long time, since the last season of Loki, or arguably Moon Knight, but in a different way. It's just a really good story with really compelling characters and really compelling like theory for what it means for the overarching plot, while also being focused on what's going on in the moment. And the theory, like kind of switching gears for a second, like to talk about the show, like what you were saying is about being shifted to the God of Stories. The current theory that this friend and I have is that essentially what happens at the TVA is a time loop, and that He Who Remains didn't create the TVA, Loki does. The theory is that Loki time slips so far back that he creates that, or so far forward, we're not really sure yet, because time is kind of like oblivious in this universe, to where he creates the TVA. The question then becomes, how does Kang come into power at the TVA, right? Like where does the time, where do the gaps fill in, right? And then obviously the sacred timeline is created and Miss Minutes happens and blah, 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 blah. Loki gets varianted. He finds himself back up at the TVA with Mobius. Loki season 1 happens. Loki season 2 happens. The world explodes. Time starts again. And that's the theory that we have working, which is kind of what I've said would happen with Wanda. This is what I always thought would happen with Wanda. That eventually, in the long run, the grand scheme of things, she was going to manipulate everyone, Westview everyone, into creating the new universe, right? I don't know. And I think that aligns with the God of Stories theory that you're talking about. Loki.
I have a different. I'm going to take a wild guess. He Who Remains explained how all the Kangs ended up battling and dying off, and he was the only Kang left. Mm-hmm. Basically, he was He Who Remains. He was the one who remained.
Right.
I don't think it's because he just literally battled them. I think he used that as a metaphor. I don't think all the Kangs showed up and just fought each other and then there was only one left. I think here's a theory, fan theory for Loki. Remember in season 1, He Who Remains was saying, everything you've done, I've already known you were going to do it. And all I've done was set the table for you to do exactly what I knew you were going to do. Mm-hmm. I think this is all still part of that. You notice he brings in Victor Timely to use the temporal aura. Mm-hmm. And then Timely turns to spaghetti.
Right.
What if, here's a what if.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
What if Loki has been manipulated to think he can actually save the TVA by harnessing. They need a Kang variant aura, temporal aura, to try to stop the loom.
Right.
What if Loki keeps going back and getting a different variant?
Kang, and killing him off for him.
And every time it happens, they keep getting killed off. And so in essence, the war that Kang, He Who Remains, referenced is just this very long, drawn out process of essentially Loki getting these variants to come and try to stop the loom, but it doesn't work. And He Who Remains, the timeline loops. Eventually, all of the loops end up coming back to just him being the only one left, or something like that. So I don't know. I'm just thinking maybe the time slipping was also part of He Who Remains' master plan.
I think it's definitely possible.
That Loki is essentially doing the work of getting rid of all the Kang variants.
I think that's definitely possible, especially because the show is not afraid to be meta, clearly. But you see it a lot heavier in season 2 because, I mean, okay, the ending scene of episode 1 is the same scene as the ending scene of episode 3 or episode 4. And it's looped. And you can see past Loki from episode 1 behind current Loki. I mean, that whole scene with Sylvie in the elevator repeats itself.
Yep.
The show clearly is aware that time is looping. And I'm really interested to see where this goes in the long run, because I hope that they take that and they utilize that to its absolute fullest potential. Because if you want to talk about time looping, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the fact that every single Kang has to die off to get to He Who Remains. And you're trying to tell me that all of that happens before Loki even makes it to the TVA? You're lying.
Well, we find out in episode 4, I don't want to give a spoiler for episode 5.
If for no other reason,
you find out how the characters that he's interacting with in TVA, where they came from before they became variants, they got brought to the TVA, right? I mean, there's
and
that.
Also just if for no other reason, I mean, I guess it's weird because time doesn't exist at the TVA. So the timeline of how He Who Remains gets there can be complicated. But we have a movie that has been announced that's going to be released in 2026. Kang War. Avengers Kang War.
I mean, yeah.
And I mean, that has to happen.
Well, we'll see what happens.
I mean, the way I see it is that has to happen before He Who Remains can sit on his throne at the TVA. But also at the same time, it happens before because the time is just a circle.
You asked me before, speaking of that, you asked me before what I love about this show. And it's sort of like the Ouroboros character, which in mythology, the Ouroboros was a snake that just was eating its own tail. So it never ended, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's things like Ouroboros writing the TVA manual because he gets the knowledge from Victor Timely to write the manual but Timely got the ideas
from the manual
that Ouroboros wrote that he was inspired by because of what he learned from Timely. Right. So the cycle is it's just a never ending loop of chicken and egg, right?
Right. That also means that the branched timeline of Victor Timely had to have existed. It didn't have a choice. And so I think that
it may have been spaghetti by now for all we know.
I mean, I think that actually brings up a really valid thing that I haven't really seen too many people talking about. If OB canonically did not write the TVA timeline without Victor Timely, that means the loom had to have gone crazy. The TVA had to have been shut down so that Victor Timely could ever possibly exist. Sylvie would have had to kill He Who Remains so Victor Timely could come to existence, so OB could write the TVA manual.
It's pretty mind-boggling.
It definitely...
And at this time of night, I'm not following.
It definitely adds to the theory that He Who Remains has orchestrated all of this, but it doesn't answer the question of two characters that we haven't seen in 2 episodes, right. Renslayer and Miss Minutes. Where have they been? What have they been up to? I think they're going to come back in the final episode and we'll find out what happens here. Listen, we're about 35 minutes into this. We could go on forever, but it's getting late. I know we're recording this late at night in advance so we can get it out, but I thought it was important. We're enjoying season 2.
We enjoyed The Marvels. The Marvels is coming out next week, I think.
Is it
next
really?
week.
I had no idea.
And I'm really excited to see that. I think it's going to be a good show. And I think, again, to go back to the Disney Plus, with the exception of Secret Invasion, I've enjoyed all of them. I don't think they're all great, but I enjoyed all of them. But I would say my top one right now is season 2 of Loki. My second favorite is probably WandaVision, with Loki season 1 as my third favorite. And if I had to pick a fourth, I don't want to pick a fourth. It would be, I think Falcon, Winter Soldier, Hawkeye, and Miss Marvel were all sort of of equal.
I loved Moon Knight so much. It's definitely on my rewatch list for December.
Moon Knight's far off. I mean,
I loved Moon Knight, you guys. You have no idea. Yeah, so. It's the only show that we got up at 5 a.m. every single day to watch.
What would be those are my top 3.
This is really hard. I think I would just clump Loki into one because they're the same show. But the top has got to be WandaVision. So much nostalgia behind that. And then Loki. And then I'm torn between Moon Knight and Hawkeye, but I like them for very different reasons. The Moon Knight story is fascinating, but Hawkeye was really funny, really, truly entertaining.
Yeah, it was very good.
So yeah.
All right. Speaking of good, this was a good episode.
Yeah. Right. So if you guys have any thoughts on Loki season 2 or any of the other Marvel series, feel free to send us an email, disneyassembled@gmail.com. Or send us a message on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all at Disney Assembled. But if you guys want to support the show further, the link to our TeePublic, Patreon, Buy Us a Dole Lip, and all that other super fun stuff is on our website, disneyassembled.com.
Yep, please do that if you haven't done so already. Check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com. Look for Disney Assembled there. Subscribe if you haven't done that already. We'd really appreciate that. It makes us feel good when people subscribe. So help us feel good. Don't you want us to feel good? You enjoy the show. Help us out. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And of course, the best thing you can do to help us create more joy and spread the word is tell your friends, tell your neighbors, share it on your social networks, share the show, go to our website, share the links. And if you have the ability to do so on the podcast player of choice, subscribe to the show there, of course, but also leave a rating and review that is really kind and nice and lets people find us. We'd really appreciate that. All right. Mimi, high five. It is late. We're a little bit off our game, but we are going to wrap this show up, guys. Thank you for listening. We hope this week's episode brought a smile to your face, an extra little bit of magic to your day, and the all-important sprinkle of pixie dust to your week.
Speaking of that, I was Tinkerbell for Halloween.
You were.
Pixie dust.
Yeah.
Boom. Anyway, that's it.
Very good. And we're working on a video.
We are. I'm in the middle of editing
YouTube channel, so we're not going to tell you about it. It's a new content for the YouTube channel coming out soon. So get to that YouTube channel, subscribe, so you can and ring the bell icon. What do you do? Is it ring the bell? Is it check the bell? Get the bell? Something with the bell so you get notified, right? Yeah, click the bell so you get notified when it goes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the show. And until next time,
see you real soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, please collect your belongings, watch your head and step, and take small children by the hand.